Welcome to People Love Process. Hopefully you watched the short invite video for our first creative challenge, which was to create a Year of the Dragon design inspired by the Chinese Lunar Calendar. So in this movie, I want to take you through what I created, and then after that, we'll take a look at what you, the audience, created. A lot of really cool stuff people sent in, and this is going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited to show you what other people created as well. So let's dive into it. Now, over the years, I've done a lot of different dragons for a lot of different things. It's always a theme that's fun to work in. The dragon you see on the left, that, believe it or not, was a custom piece of artwork that a creative director for HGTV said, hey, I want to get a dragon tattooed. And he asked me to create this for him, and I did. And I saw it one time at a creative conference. He came up to me and he showed it to me. It's on the back of his calf, on his leg. And that was, I usually refer to those as walking portfolios of sorts. Of course, we did the brand mark for Dungeons and Dragon, arguably the world's most popular ampersand. The one in the middle, a friend of mine, Derek, does fantasy novels. He has a series called The Saruman Quest, and that was used on the cover of his book. There was a massage parlor up north in Portland, Oregon, where near where I live, and that was their name, so we used a dragon on that. The top right is part of my book, Take a Make art book, which is for designers, and it just gives them a bunch of stock illustration they can use, and a tribal design I did years ago in a tribal style. All of them dragons. So where does my process start? Well, you probably realize this if you've watched any of my previous videos. Starts in analog, starts off in drawing, thumbnail drawing specifically, just to work through, capture ideas. The one on the left, pretty crude, about an inch tall. Then I decided, well, I'm going to try to do it in a circular motif. And I didn't hate this one, but it more or less read as a letter form, almost more in a dragon. So I decided to keep drawing, keep working on what I could possibly do. Figured out maybe I could do a symmetric, where it's pretty symmetric. It's a spiral, so it's like a serpent type dragon, and its head is pointing at you. And this represents the kanji for what I want to put here, and the kanji character specifically. I drew out the dragon head, just trying to figure out if this is what I wanted to do. Decided I like the tail, but not the composition. So I decided to keep drawing, did this new thumbnail sketch, and it's pretty crude. I don't really like the flame coming out of its head that much, but I thought there was something about it that could work. So I reworked it, redrew it, another pretty crude drawing, but I really like this one. It's obviously not ready for prime time. I wouldn't want to scan this in and try to build my vectors because it doesn't inform me on shape and form. It just captures the essence of an idea. I wasn't sure if I wanted to work legs into it. That's why I have this one leg doing, just coming out right there. And so I decided to draw it a little tighter, still rough, but draw it a bit tighter. And I drew this one. And once I got this one finished drawing, I go, okay, I like this. I think this is the direction I want to move. I'm going to redraw it again, just a little tighter, and that's what this shows. I use my sketch that I originally created and just tighten up those shapes, thinking in forms that I know I can build easy in Illustrators until I have a refined sketch. Now, it's always easier to build vector art in a 90-degree orientation. If you try to do it in an angle, it's just going to be way harder. It's going to take longer, and it's easier just to rotate our art. So that's all I'm going to do here. Now, I usually have smart guides on, so when you do that, you can go to a corner and notice it tells you what the angle is, like that. So you could do that manually. And that's what I did initially to figure this out, but I'm going to cheat for the sake of brevity. Click on this, and we're doing it at a minus 26.86, so it's not even it's a fractional number, and we'll click OK. But I drop a guide down, so as I'm visually rotating it, I can use that to determine if it's going to be a nice horizontal. Now notice my head is still angled. That was purposeful. I didn't want it completely straight. I want it to kind of angle down with his eyes to give him kind of a sinister look. We'll go ahead and get rid of this guide. Now I'll just adjust the opacity. I'll put it at 20% and lock that layer. So let's focus on some geometric building. This is pretty simple. If we go into the head here, these can just be simple shapes. If we start with this looks like a tongue depressor of sorts. Started off as a rectangle. All I did was just select the corners with the corner widget and create that kind of popsicle stick shape, making sure this shape is on top of the other one. Then we can just do minus front like this. Now, this artwork is going to be strokes, so they don't have to be closed shapes. So we're going to cut it with the scissor tool and get rid of the elements we don't need like that. So you can see that this doesn't even have a back on it. That's fine, because this one will just drag over here, and this one will drag till it hits that anchor point. Now, if I zoom in on this, I have smart guides turned on. So if I hover over an anchor, it says I'm an anchor. If I hover over a path, it says I'm a path, so on and so forth. If I take this and slide it over, notice it doesn't want to snap on the path. This is that snapping bug that Illustrator runs into. What I usually do is drag it past, stop, drag it back, and then it behaves the way it should. It tells me I'm over a path. Why they can't fix that, I have no idea. They just get mad at me when I bring it up. So I'm on the beta team, so whenever they post new features, I go, yeah, that's pretty cool. How about that snapping bug? Is it fixed yet? They always kind of get irritated at me. I don't know. Somebody has to do it. It's like it should be fixed by now. It's like a teenager. That's how old the bug is. We're going to get rid of anchors as we build. And again, this is a closed shape. It really doesn't need to be, although this one's a little more forgiving because this one, we can just drag this path over and snap it there. Oops. No, I guess we do want to keep it right there where it was, like that. So that's fine because this one's closed, even though the other ones aren't, like the eye and this back one. So that'll work. We'll take these two. This type of building with strokes only is ideal for the shape building tool. So if we take that, hold Option down, then we can get rid of elements like that. Here's something I'll show you because a lot of people hype this in a lot of reel hypers is what I call the social media people that put up reels about dumb little features in Illustrator. One is the join tool. Well, you can do this, and it's always zoomed in. So that's one reason why I don't really use this, because you have to zoom in to do it. And then if you just wipe over this like this, it'll join it. And for this specific context, yeah, it works great. That's what you would want to use it for. But for most of the context, and I say this context because this is an open shape. If it was a closed shape, I would just click it close and unite it and then delete the artifact it leaves. It's just as fast, if not faster. We'll take the point on this, on his beak, and we'll round this off. Beak. I don't know if they call it a beak on a dragon. His nose. Let's select this nostril, go back to the shape building tool, holding Option down, get rid of that. That's all we need. We'll do the same thing on his nose and this interior line. We don't need it. Shape building tool, focus there, get rid of that. And then I can go ahead, I'll cut it over here and cut it right about here because I want this notch to come in like that. Get rid of that. And now what I do want it to do is, because this is where I would zoom in. So right now, this path terminates into this one. So I'd select this path, hover over till I know where I'm at that anchor point, and I'd click with the scissor tool just to isolate this and get rid of it. But we don't want that little thing. We want these to be joined together, and you wouldn't use the join tool. This is where I would just go ahead and group it so it's acting as one object. Click into isolation mode, direct select both these anchors and go Command J, and that'll weld them together. So that's how you'd want to handle that. So the join tool works in certain contexts, not so well in other ones. On this one, I would go into strokes and make sure that it terminates with a round cap as it comes in, creating that notch. And that's how I would build most of the elements that are in the dragon's head using geometric shape building methods. So let's go ahead and focus on the body. You can see I have the rest of the elements done up here for his head, the bottom, the teeth, so on and so forth. As we approach the body, what are ways you can do this? Well, you could start with squares. If you're going to use the corner widget, just select the two anchors in the given rectangle shape, then round them, select these two anchors, round those, and now you have everything needed. Just make sure this shape is on top. We'll fill it so you can see that it is. We'll select this and we'll go minus front, and that creates that part of his body. We can take the part we've already made with the tail, unite those together. This is where I'll go in with the scissor tool, and I'll just cut because we don't want that here. These will all be paths like that. Let's zoom out a bit. And so we have this element, and I do this exact building all the time. I just don't start with the square. I start with the circle. I go to dynamic corners by Astute Graphics, and I just pull out from a circle to a square, isolate the anchors I want, drag them past. In this case, we'll fill it. It's on top of the other shape. That way we can minus front to get the piece we need. I'll go in and cut these with the scissor tool because we'll fuse these with the bottom part here and the top part here once we create it. Get rid of those. So I take this anchor, slide it over till it snaps to that one, do the one on the bottom, select these, go Command J. Once again, way faster in trying to use the join tool. And then as I go, I remove these. And because they're on a straight line, you don't have to smart remove them. They're on a 90-degree angle, hence why it's faster to build at 90 degrees. Or you can start off with a square, use a corner widget to round these on this side, and then you can use offset. So if you know what width or you're experimenting, you can just do an offset. In this case, we're going to do it at 50 and click OK. That's fine. We'll take the inside shape that we offset. And again, you want to make sure this is on top of the other shape. We'll fill it with blue so you can see it is. We'll select both, minus front, and then we'll just cut it somewhere around there. We'll cut it right there, and we'll cut the ends here because we don't need that. And we don't need this part. Then I'll drag these over, snap to where the other body part ends, select these, Command J, select these anchors, Command J, and then as we go, we can select the anchors we don't need on a straight line and just get rid of them. And then if we go up here to the head, as it goes into the back of the head, we'll just select these elements and go back to the shape tool, hold Option down, and just trim off those extensions we don't need. So that's how I would build the body using shape building, using strokes, using the shape building tool. It makes the process go pretty quick. Now, as I'm moving forward and I'm getting ready to build the breastplate on this dragon, notice these little parts that stick out. The reason why I drew it that way is because I liked how I did the art for Adobe back in the day. This is on their website, came with the brush set, and it just showed how you can use vector brushes. And I did this art, but I really like the breastplating on this illustration. So that's what I wanted to do in this one. I want to show you how I go about creating that. It's super easy. In this case, we're starting with the square. Once again, we made another tongue depressor shape, just making sure it's on top. And if we go ahead and fill this, you can see it is. We'll just select both. We'll go minus front. That'll define that little lip on the breastplate. But because we're only using strokes, we don't need a bunch of this. We'll cut it here with the scissor tool in here, select those paths, get rid of them, and this is all we need. Now on this shape for the body, since we're working in strokes, we're going to cut it here, and we'll go over here and cut it here, and we'll cut it here. Why did I do that? Because I'm going to isolate these anchors and snap them to other ones, select both, go Command J, drag this over. Notice how going left to right, it doesn't want to snap on that path. This is that snapping bug. This is probably, oh, there you go. Now, if you go really slow, it'll do it. So it's very, I call it an intermittent bug. Doesn't always do this, but it seems like right when you're trying to go as fast as possible, it does. We'll fuse these together. So what I usually do, moving left to right, it acts like nothing's there. But if you stop and you go back the other way, it'll work the way it should. So why does this happen in Illustrator? Well, I think it's fundamentally because nobody on the Illustrator team actually uses Illustrator to build art, or they'd run into this and realize, you know, that really shouldn't do that. We should fix that. I've showed it to them for over 11 years now, and they still haven't bothered to fix it. And I remember when they broke it in an update to CS6. So that shows you how long it's been. So that's how I created that little detailing on the breastplates. If you think in shapes, build in shapes, it makes the process go faster. Now on this design, the part that intimidated me a little bit was, how am I going to create those spine type scale fins or whatever you want to call them? And I was thinking, well, if I offset the shape, I could offset like the body. That would give me this outside profile. Then I could just, well, that would be complex to do it that way. And then it hit me, oh, duh, use pattern brushes. So that's what I want to show you here. But first, I have this shape right here. Why do I have this? Well, let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit so you can see this better. It's because this, if I snap it to these anchors right here, this is how far I offset this path. This path is what we're going to wrap our pattern brush on, but this shape defines how far off of the body it was. In this case, it's 7.6 points, and this shape is 12.3697 tall. Let's go ahead and copy this, zoom out, and I'm going to go up here because this is the artwork we're going to use for the brush. And we have a guide snapped here as a baseline. I'll paste that shape. We'll go ahead and rotate it like this, and I'll snap it to this guide. I'm going to copy this shape, Command C, Command F, or use duplicate that's in your, what do they call that? In your contextual taskbar, which I always have off because I find it gets in my way. I'm showing you this because this is how far we're offsetting to wrap the path, and this defines the top of the brush, because a brush like this, a vector brush, pattern brush, as well as art brushes, work from the center of the vector art that makes up the brush outward on both sides. So it's going to be right where this anchor point is, dividing this brush in half. It's important to understand that. So let's go ahead and create the brush we want. We can go ahead and take this path, and we'll just colorize it the same color as our base art. We'll take this artwork, and I'm going to go ahead and go down to the brushes palette, click plus, click on pattern brush, click OK. We'll name this one Spine 1. Now, by default, their algorithm will want to generate a corner tile. I wish you could just turn this off by default, but always make sure to turn that off because it always sucks. It never looks good at all. How about this corner? No thanks. I don't want to use it. Now, if you're going to be coloring these brushes, we aren't. You would want to go ahead and do tints here. If we did this, it's not going to ruin it. It just means we could color it a different color based off of the path it's wrapped on by changing that color. So it doesn't matter. Either way, everything else we'll leave by default. I'll click OK. You can see our Spine 1 brush here. If I select this path and I apply the brush to it, this is what we're going to end up with. You can see, let's go ahead and zoom in on that. So you can see how it's wrapped that brush, and you can see that path cuts right through the middle of that brush. That's why we figured that out, how tall the brush art was, and then that defined how far in terms of width we needed to offset our path to wrap that brush around it. So hopefully that makes sense to you. Now, what I'm going to do, because we're not going to leave these as live paths, we're going to go to Object, we'll go Expand Appearance, like that. Let's go ahead and sample the stroke width. But notice it's going to add these extra anchor points. And I just clean this up as I go along, but I just wanted to show you this because you might be going, why is it doing that? Well, that's it just does it. I don't know why it does it, but it really shouldn't. There is Smart Remove in Illustrator, although it's somewhat of a hidden feature. You have to click a different tool again, like this Remove Anchor Point tool. Now, in the menu up here, if I select an anchor, that anchor point tool will show up in the control bar up here. Don't use this version of it. Go to the actual tool itself, and you want to don't click on it. We have that highlighted. We want to click on this, and then if we select our artwork like this, hold the Shift key down with the anchor, the minus pin tool, and if you click on a path, it'll remove that anchor, and hopefully do it smartly so it doesn't destroy the path or the shape of your artwork. Let's go ahead and undo that, because I'll show you, you can do it that way. It's just laborious. And the problem I find with this feature in Illustrator as it was implemented is it gets like, it's hard to see what you're doing at times, especially if there's more anchor points. This is why I tend to use Vector Scribe Smart Remove brush, because I can see everything here I need, and I just wipe it from the beginning over the top, and notice how it is smart enough to know these are the only anchors you need to retain that shape. Literally 5 anchors, but yet Illustrator, their coding says, you need 25, So that's why I use plugins, is because if you want to create clean art, now is there anything quote unquote wrong with 25 anchors? No. But if you're going to create clean art and precise craftsmanship, I think you should be cleaning up your art as you go along. So I just wanted to walk you through that and show you that. Didn't want to just kind of glaze over it as if, hey, do this, do that, and you never have to worry about it. No, you should be paying attention to stuff as you're creating. So let's go ahead. We have another offset path here. And again, what we're going to do is we're going to take our artwork as shown here, and the stroke we're using, by the way, doesn't really matter because we can define that later. We're going to take this and wrap it around this path here. So let's add this as another pattern brush. Click OK. This one will be spine 2. It's going to try to create the corner. No, thank you. Don't do that. We'll leave everything else default. Click OK. Select the path, and we'll go ahead and apply the pattern brush to that. And I think that looks great. Now, it doesn't align with our drawing. That's fine. It doesn't really need to. I think this looks, I didn't try to draw my drawing perfectly. I just knew once I figured out I could create it with a pattern brush, I didn't worry about drawing it perfectly because my shape that would wrap that path. And again, if we select this, notice it's cutting that brush in half if it's swinging around. Now, if you ever wanted to adjust this, you could go back here, select this anchor and slide it this way, and then it will move around that path if you wanted to adjust it. So that's how you could adjust it. If you had a plugin, you could also do it from this end. Like I have a plugin called Extend Path, and I could go down here and do it this way as well. But if you don't have a plugin, you're not going to be able to do that natively in Illustrator. But using pattern brushes is going to simplify the process. Let's jump to the third spine because it involves a little more finessing. So we're going to click on this. This is our artwork. We have two pieces here. We have a longer one and a subtly short one because these pieces, as I was drawing it, I'm thinking these are the same, but I want this one a little smaller. Well, how do you do that? Well, it's easier to do it this way. Select the art, click on the button, go to pattern brush, click OK, name this spine 3, get rid of the corner, auto generate, and leave everything by default, click OK. Then we're going to go ahead and apply this pattern to our brush. So we'll click on this and everything looks good, but this one, I didn't like how long it looks. So how do we resolve that? Well, this is where we would select this, and if we hold Option down and drag it into this position on that pattern brush and let go, it'll put it at the in position, meaning the starting point. The arrow represents the end point. The starting point of that path, and we'll click OK. It's going to say, hey, you're changing your brush. Do you want to apply this to the strokes you've already done? Yes, apply to strokes like that. And it's added a smaller one here, so it's not dropping down as far. Now, again, it doesn't align with my drawing perfectly. That's fine. This is going to work great. And that's how I use pattern brushes to do what I thought would be kind of a pain to build. So it made the process easier. So think through features that are going to simplify and help you as you build your art. So let's go ahead and dive into the base art. We have everything in place now. We just need to add some minor detailing, and that minor detailing is going to be our scales. So I have a rectangle I'm starting out here. I'll just grab the scissor tool because we don't need this top line. We just need basically a U shape. So I'll select these two anchors and round it. So that's about as easy as it gets. If we go to strokes, we're going to add a round cap so it'll look nice and not be flat. And then we'll take this, we'll clone it, Command-C, Command-F. If you have a duplicate button in your contextual menu bar, you could just select and click the duplicate. I just find it faster to do my keyboard shortcut like that. And all we're doing is we're kind of alluding to the fact that his body has scales on it. I don't want to cover everything in scales, but I just want to imply it, I guess. And then, of course, we'll end up doing all the other scales like that. And so I think that's going to look really good. Now, it's at this point I want to determine the thickness of my path. Right now, I believe it's 0.5 points. Yeah. So we're going to beef this all the way up to 3 points like that. And we make sure also, I should point out, if I select a shape, make sure you want rounded corners, because if we don't have that, look at what this looks like. It doesn't actually do the point. And the only way you could do the point is if you adjust the mitering. Right now it's pretty low. If you go 28, then it'll make something that looks weird like this. And this is where it gets to this point. Instead of continuing that curve, it just goes straight. So that's why I tend to, I'm going to undo that number, and then we'll just put it at the round corner. I just think the aesthetic looks better. Okay, let's jump back into this. So I think that looks good. I don't want to keep the color, this magenta color. Oh, I just noticed an area. Let's zoom in on his nose. This is a good example. So as this notch goes in here, this path would look better again. If we go to stroke, we go round cap, just so it adds that nice little round at the end. Just pay attention to those details, and up here as well. We'll put a round cap on those. There we go. Now we're going to select everything and we're going to color it black like that. And I think this looks good. And it was at this point that I'm looking at this and I go, I wonder if it'd look better if I elongated the neck. And so I decided to make a copy of this art and try it. And I go, ooh, that kind of looks cool. I had to go back and add another fin here. And so I decided I was going to go this route. So once I have these as paths, I want to go ahead and expand them. Now, if I just color this one so you can see us doing it, let's go ahead and color this one blue like that. So you can see that's what this path is. To expand it, you would just go Object, you go down to Path, and you go Outline Stroke. All that does is turn it into a shape. So if I go into Keyline View, you can see everything else is strokes. This one is now a no stroke filled shape. So that's what I do, is I do that for all of my paths. So if I turn this on, you can see all of the shapes here. And the reason why I do this is because as I build now, I'm going to be fusing together some things and other things I won't be fusing together. What do I mean by that? Well, everything on the interior that's showing white that's in the background, this will actually be the color. This will actually be the fill that I'll end up coloring. There won't be any outlines. It'll just be gaps in between shapes of the body and the head, so on and so forth, on the scales and on the breastplate itself. So I keep that in mind because on the top here with the nostrils, these won't fuse into this. I'm going to use these in this case. If I take these two and I'll clone them, Command-C, Command-F, and we'll just color it like a green color, like that. I'll go ahead, unite these together, and then on these two shapes, these will just go ahead and unite. With the green on top, I'll select this, and I'll just trim it. So it comes to the edge of this, because this green here will just be a space, and this shape in here that's white, the background, will be the color itself. This will make more sense as we keep moving forward. Now, as I was looking at this, I'm going, you know, if I take these like this, and you could test it by just going and selecting this shape and going unite. Once I did that, I go, these teeth are a little smaller. I kind of like the size of the outline itself. So I decided to get rid of my original teeth and put in new teeth, so they're actually larger. It looked a little frail with his little, I don't know, little itsy bitsy teeth. So that's what I do. And now what I do at this point is I'm just going to start selecting shapes. Like, let's select all of his head shapes like this. And actually, before we do that, let's take this shape and let's clone it, Command-C, Command-F. And we're going to bring this to front. We'll put it on the same layer as the teeth, because what I want to do is, oops, I added an outline instead of a fill. Get rid of the outline, make it green, because I want to trim the teeth, because what's purple will be the gap. This can get confusing, so you just have to pay attention, because there's been many times I'm working on something. I might be listening to an audiobook, watching, Netflix, whatever, while I'm working, and I probably should be paying better attention, and then I accidentally fuse things together that shouldn't be fused, and it's after the fact. Then I have to go back and either Command-Z it until I get back to where I was, or just fix it from where I'm at. So with all these shapes selected, we'll color them all the same color like this. Oops, let's do these eye shapes too. So we have all the head shapes for the most part, except for the nostril, and we'll go ahead and unite it like that. And then what I'm going to do now, which seems a little counterintuitive, I'll go to Compound Path and I'll go Release. And then you might have to ungroup it a few times. We'll select the outermost shape and I'll delete it. This is what we're after. Just independent shapes with gaps showing through to the background behind it. And that's why I did this, so it has that nice continuity of the gap there and in between the teeth. So that's what I wanted to show you. Ultimately, what you end up with is this base art like this, all black, and this is where I want to go in and do some subtle rounding. And so I'll go in on shapes like this. All these come to a dagger sharp point, and this is where I like to use a plugin. If you want to do this with the corner widget, you can. I just prefer doing it with dynamic corners. So I'll figure out that size. I like it. Then I can just touch all the ones I want to match that. And it adds these subtle little rounds here. That way, vector art can come to a dagger sharp point. And I think this is one way to improve it, is to add subtle rounds like that. And I'll do that wherever I think it's necessary or it improves the art. But it was at this point, I'm looking at this, I'm going, wait a minute. And this is where I realize my hyper-focusing at times, I totally forget something I previously thought about. And that is, I rotated this artwork into this orientation to make building easier. But obviously, it's going to be in this orientation. That's what I want in the final art. And that doesn't have the long neck. So guess what? I had to fix it because I totally spaced on that as I'm creating. And yes, I debated whether to keep this in the movie. And I did, because that's how I work at times. I just totally space. So I need to go back and fix this art. And that's what I did. I moved it back into that orientation. And this is where I'll go ahead and select the art. We'll go back to the rotate tool and we'll just remove the minus because this was the rotation we did. And I think that does look better, and it looked weird. And the reason why I like it at this orientation is because the left side kind of goes with a hidden line going down. With the longer one, it would exceed into this area. And so I should have been paying better attention, but I wasn't. Now, as I'm looking at this, I'm also figuring out that, you know what? There's some areas of improvements on this that are needed that I didn't immediately notice before I got to this stage. And they're not huge, but I'll just zoom in on a few of them. Like on his chin, where the interior shape gets this round. That's because I used strokes. And I'm going, not so sure about that. Definitely don't like that. And the other one, if we go down here on the tail, I don't really like that. So this is where I go back and I fix those areas by making those having those come to a point I think looks better. So if you look at the head, before, after, that looks way better. And down below, before, after, fixing all those in the very end of the tail. And I think that's going to improve it. And it was at this point that I further art directed myself, because I realized, what? How did I miss that? And I realized, and again, you might not even notice it, but this part, I had a circular right here, and it makes sense geometry-wise, but it looks awkward because this one comes here and it creates kind of a round point of that rather than being graceful. And I have that same problem right here on the interior part of the body. So I went back again and I fixed that. So before, after. Look at how much it improves it. This is before and after. Is it a huge thing? No. Does it actually improve the art? Yeah, I think it totally improves the art. So you always want to be art directing yourself and paying attention to those things. So I like the way this looks. Adding typography to it, I picked a font style that's in my my library, and I categorize my font library by style categories, and the style for this one is novelty fonts, meaning they look like a foreign font, but they aren't. So you're the dragon, and this is actually a kanji symbol for dragon, so I like this. This is the point where I might decide to add an outer glow to it. So if I want to do that, if I select this type, let's see, we can turn on an outer glow I have here. And so you can see it's a very subtle one, but I can go to this artwork and we can add an outer glow by going to Effect, going to Stylize, going to Outer Glow. I'll do Multiply, and for outer glow, I think we'll try, I can't remember what I put the type at, but we'll try that. And then a little more, we'll add 7. And then you have to pick your color. So we'll select our color. We'll pick this one. We'll click OK. And we can preview it. I think that looks good. And that's how I'd add a subtle kind of outer glow to pop it off the background. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can colorize it. These are pretty traditional Chinese colors, but let's say it's on a darker background. You know, we could still have these colors on that background. We could go up here and we could even apply our outer glow to this, and that looks really nice. And we can select this. And do we have an outer glow? No, we can even apply it to this like that. And that helps pop it off. But I think what would look really cool is if we take this artwork and we go to our graphic styles, and I'm going to fill it instead of with gold with a nice kind of gold gradient. And then we can rotate it. Actually, first, let's go ahead and select both of these. And let's unite these together. Pathfinder Unite. And do that. That way the gold will flow through the whole thing. Then we can go to rotate and make sure we're on compound stroke. It's a compound. And go to the gradient tool. So you can see it's a pretty crazy gradient, but we can rotate it if we wanted to. So, oops, that didn't look good. There we go. So you can adjust how you want that, like this. Always looks better without the anchor points. And that's one way you can handle it. Oh, we lost our outer glow. So let's go ahead and reapply it. There we go. So you might go with the gold. I think that looks pretty good. Let's check out this one. This one on a photographic background. I think I like the flat traditional colors better. This is a beautiful photograph from China as the background. I think that looks good. And of course, I always have my X layer where as I'm building, I was actually thinking maybe doing it in all full color. And then the more I thought about it, the more I thought, nah, keep it simple. This looks a lot better. So this was my final solution for the Year of the Dragon. But now I want to take you through 10 different people who submitted their artwork and what they created for this challenge. So let's switch over to that. And the first one I want to go over is just a sketch. Now, Jack Suter had kind of sent me a message on Twitter showing me his sketch. And I go, that's cool. He's going, I don't know if I'll be able to finish it on time. That's okay. I said, hey, let me show your sketch, because this is where, in my opinion, everybody should start to work out an idea. And I think he's doing a good job of using symmetry to pull that off. Of course, you can take this into Photoshop and you could work out the full composition. And then I would probably redraw this one more time and maybe simplify some of the things. That'd be my only feedback on this. It kind of looks like I could see this as a character in a movie where it's like a fuse between a dragon and a lion. It's almost like a lion's head type dragon. It's kind of cool. So I really like this drawing. So if you do finish that, Jack, shoot me an email. I'd love to see how it comes out. Let's go to another person. Now, my on-screen recording is cutting off names. So let me click into this so I can give you the proper name. Nick Samaribra. I hope I pronounce it. I'm probably going to slaughter a lot of your names, so please forgive me. Trust me, I understand how that goes with my last name. People slaughter it all the time. It just looks hard, though. It's just Glitchka. It's not super hard. It's Slavic. Okay, so Nick, let's check out your design. This is a more simplistic one, a silhouette type of style. The only thing with this, I just have a few comments, is I like it. I think you could benefit by just putting not a lot of detail, but just subtle, like a darker shade of red, just to capture some of the maybe detailing in the wings, so it's not just big flat areas, and then just an indication of scales. Doesn't have to cover the full belly or anything. I think that would add to it. And maybe some kind of, I don't know what you call it on a dragon, a side kind of fin type thing on the side of his head, just so it adds one more element of kind of a cutout into your art. And then on the tail, it starts off good, but I think it needs to taper more into a thinner end with the spike on the tail. But overall, it's pretty cool. Now, Nick, like several people who sent in their art, kind of overachievers. Here's another design Nick did. It was symmetric, and it's a dragon's head. This one's pretty cool. I like all the tiger tooth shading kind of style you pulled off there. This one's done really well. The only part that I think you could improve upon is these little slivers. They kind of get lost on the whiskers. I might just make those the same as the base color and make sure the base color is a global color, and then you could color these like maybe a 20% tint of the base color. So it's not white, but it will act as a highlight. So that'd be my feedback on that. Let's take a look at another one, and let me click in. This is Elizabeth Mata, who created this artwork. I love the colors on this artwork. I think the colors go really well together. And as far as any feedback, and by the way, I should have said this up front, the feedback I'm giving you is just if you were my employee, I'm giving you art directive feedback. Now, art direction, when I was really young to the industry, I always got rubbed the wrong way. I felt like, hey, this is my design. Why are you trying to take it over? Well, art direction isn't about that. It's not about making it your design. It's about improving the design, improving the visual, whether it's graphic, illustrative, or otherwise. How do you improve it? And I love this design. I think it's working really well color-wise. I like a lot of the shape and form, how you handled the styling. The detailing that I would pay attention to is on his whisker. I think it's good that it tapers, but I would start it off the fattest as it comes out of his face, then it tapers off as you have it. And then the detailing on his horn, I think it's a little too small, a little too fine. I think you could lose 4 or 5 of these steps, simplify the amount of steps here, and make sure the weight of those match what you have in the tongue and what you have in the breast, and maybe beef up the ones on the nose so they all go together continuity-wise. Other than that, I love it. And the last comment on this would be the framing. I think the dragon's great, but I think the background calls a little too much attention. I like the color, but I would minimize it. So this would show like the size I think it would work well, and then your dragon breaks out of that shape and it makes it more dynamic. So that would be my only feedback here, but overall, I like this dragon a lot. Let's check out this one. This is by, go into Andre Hutima. I think I pronounced that okay. If not, you can let me know, but I really like this one. I like the graphic nature of it. I love the colors. I love the background color especially, and works really well in that respect. I like how you handled the detailing. It's like a tint to the base color. That's kind of cool. It doesn't overpower the design with a lot of detail. And he even worked out a one color option, which I thought was kind of cool. So that's always great. That's a good habit to get into as you're doing brand identity and coming up with a brand mark. There's just a couple things I want to point out that, once again, I don't think these are wrong. These are just how I could see you making this even better. And there's some points of what I would call visual tension in this design. One is this little artifact you see from the shield shape behind showing through here. That's a little distracting. And then where your whisker of your dragon goes over the edge of the shield, it's so close to the inner edge of the shield, it's kind of causing visual tension here. And I think you could improve upon that without having to change your art. And that's what I want to show you here, if you fix that tension, so if I turn this on, I just scaled your art down ever so slightly just so that whisker doesn't impede on the shield. It falls within that space. It also gives it some more breathing room. And I think this improves the composition doing that, and it works as well in your one color. But overall, really cool design. I like the simplicity of it and how you deduced everything down into simple shapes. Really well done. Here's one by Alex Smith. This one was pretty large. And so if I zoom out a bit, you can see I actually had to pull it apart. It was a PDF. And if you've never pulled apart a PDF, oh my gosh, they put all these no-fill, no-strokes bounding boxes around everything. But this was a fun one. He used a lot of vector brushes. If we go to keyline mode and you look, you can see textures and brushes in here. And but I like how everything came out. I like the movement in it. I like the kind of techno vibe of the graphics that are going around. And he branded it in kind of a cool brand as well. So this design's nice. I like it. And I'm pretty sure I didn't mess it up when I pulled it out of the PDF. If I did, I apologize. Sometimes it can kind of get confusing. But I just like how organic it is. So I thought that worked out really well. Let's take a look at another one. This is another overachiever. This is, let's make sure I get this name right. Maria Sinayaskaya? I don't know if I'm even close to that. Hopefully I am. This was a pleasant surprise. I love the origami style of a dragon. I think that's a brilliant way to handle this. I like the design you did. And I had to rasterize this because I didn't have that Astute plugin installed. So the top three images are your vector art rasterized. But I did leave this one as a pattern because this is a beautiful pattern. I just think it works really well for this theme. Gold and green always go well together. But what I wanted to show people in this movie is how you created this. So if you go over here and we turn off these layers, you can see this shape is just a rectangle filled with green, and using the appearance panel is like layers with magical abilities, if you will, because you can have one fill, you can add another fill on the same object. In this case, it's a tone on tone with her origami dragon. And then she has the line work of the dragon, which really contrasts well. Just a cool pattern. Really, really cool. So love what you did here. This is impeccable. Really well done. Let's check out another one. This is, now I hope I don't slaughter your last name, David. David Diacodemetrio. Diacodemetrio? I don't know. Once again, you're probably laughing. Anyway, I might have slaughtered this name, but you slaughtered this project in a very good way. I love this. It's great. It's very retro. That's what I like about it. I like the shapes. I like the coloring. I like the texture you used. And so what I had to do is I had to rasterize this because it was really large. So this isn't vector art. These are images of the vector, well, the PDF file that he sent. But I just want to focus on a couple details. And like on his head, once again, I tried to rasterize this the best I could, and this was the best I could get. So the teeth. I like the teeth. I just think it needs more contrast so it stands out, because I almost didn't even notice the teeth until I created the larger image. And the other comment I'll make is I love this part. This is my favorite part of the whole design, just because I like how you simplified the tie, the collar, the little pocket what do they call it? The pocket thing that you put in the front pocket. I like how you simplified everything. It just adds to the overall detail. And on this part, where you have this nice loose style, very retro looking, I noticed it's kind of getting blurry on the edge of the black. So I would check your file. I didn't bother to click on the black. I probably should have done that. I'm thinking you're using a regular black. And if you used a process black, maybe one that had a little more red in it, it would prevent that kind of halo effect, that gray effect you get around the black. And it would just be black against this background color. So you might want to check that to make sure what type of black you're using. But overall, this is a really fun piece, really executed well. Let's jump to another one. And this one is by Jonathan McDonald. And I like this one too. I like the simplicity of it. It's utilizing kind of, I would call this a very iconic style, but it's free flowing. The only thing that I would say is darken your shading color. So here's your exact art with just a bit more contrast between the shading and the base value, and I think it works a lot better. So that's the only feedback I give in terms of that. Other than that, I like the design. I like how you handled it. Let's check out another one. This is Dave Malik, and Dave did this one, and I like the comic nature of it. It's almost like this dragon's pissed off and he's just brooding. I kind of like that. Just a couple comments, and that is you have notches to define where something goes behind or over the top. I might reinforce that with some shadowing. Like on this part, you could have had a shadow that went right here and just move some of these scales over a bit. Just to help that, and maybe put some of that shading up here to define an element on the side of the dragon's face. The other thing, I find the box behind him, I don't mind having a shape behind him. I just think it needs to be not just a perfectly hard edge rectangle. So what I did is I just put a couple brushes in here and I just brushed that shape in the background. And I think this looks really nice, and it contrasts well with the foreground dragon because the dragon's all hard shape and the background is textured. So it creates that contrast, but it falls back. So you might want to consider doing that. And the last one I want to show you, and this is another one with the name that I'm probably going to mess up. Let's see, it's Igor Sarazetnov. I hope I came close at least on that. This is the design he did, and I saw this and I go, wow, I love the colors. I love the background color. It's kind of an off-white. I love the fact that the dragon is kind of a darker green, but the inside of the dragon isn't the background color. If you look at it, it's just a very light tint of the base color, the dragon green, which I think works great. I love the red with this. I like the multiply effect with the type running over the top of the dragon or the kanji symbol. The use of texture is handled really well. And just overall, I think everybody who participated in this challenge did a great job. So I encourage you to jump in on the next one. The next one's going to be fun. We'll approach a project like this each year in terms of the Chinese Lunar Calendar, and next year's theme is a snake. So that should be a fun one too. Now, our next Creative Challenge video invite will be posted really soon, so check that out. And I think you'll want to do it. It's going to be a fun topic. And actually, the topic will be whatever you want. It's going to be a fun theme for what I'm going to be asking you to create. Now, I'm not an SEO expert, but I do know from what YouTube tells channel authors like myself that a simple like, a share, or subscribing to this channel all helps me to get more traffic. And I'm just trying to get this out to as many people as I can to help them. And of course, a big thank you to those who are members of my YouTube channel and support my creative efforts each month. I really do appreciate it a lot. And if you become a member, I share things via YouTube with the members that nobody else gets to see. It's behind the scenes type of stuff. What's coming up? I'll ask them for their opinion on what they'd like to see, etc. So check that out. Until next time, thank you for watching PPLLUV Process. And as always, I hope this content helps you to improve your own creative process.